Welcome to the SolScript Podcast. Here we explore how to unlock the power of our story. Our journey here on Earth can be one of deep passion, intentional creation, and personal transformation. The only thing holding us back is our stories. Come and join me as we rewrite and reignite. Hello and welcome back to another week, another episode on the SolScript Podcast. Today we are going to be talking about essentially it not being too late for you to follow your dreams, to switch careers, to go after the things that you feel passionate about. And the reason why I wanted to talk to you about this today is actually for two reasons. One, because I feel like I've been experiencing this hesitation on my own right now as I'm doing self-discovery and as I'm, kind of deciding what new direction I want to walk down. And so I've had these ideas or these beliefs pop into my mind that, no, you can't do that because it's way too late. And there's ideas that have come to my mind that I've never even thought about before, and actually a ton of evidence, supposed evidence built up in my mind as to why I could never do that. And so I'm experiencing this for myself right now and trying to kind of process these emotions or these beliefs out of me so that I can move forward powerfully. But I think that this is a lesson, even though I'm right in the middle of it, I think it's a lesson that we all need to kind of come back to and center ourselves around, especially if you've been having this longing to, maybe not a longing to do something, maybe it's, a regretful feeling. Maybe you're looking back on the past, regretting that you didn't walk down a specific pathway for any number of reasons. Or maybe you do feel this kind of, desire to change and to shift. And maybe you have this idea, same as me, that it's too late, or you have evidence behind you as to why that would never work, or things are too chaotic in your life, whether it's financially or family or other obligations, to be able to go and pursue them. The other reason why is because I have seen multiple people in my life very recently be laid off from their jobs. And of course, this is really, really difficult for the people who are going through this. And I can't say that I've experienced this firsthand. I've done a lot of contract work, and so it's usually my choice whether I want to, take the work or not. I can imagine how difficult it would be, and especially when you are supporting a family and when that income, is big for you. And so I can essentially look at this from an outside perspective, but I don't know if I can necessarily really weigh in on this. But sometimes from a distance, I can see this experience happening or taking place in a loved one's life. And I'm like, oh man, this is a major invitation for you to transform and for you to transition and for you to break free of old habits. And, unfortunately, you're in the circumstance where you are being forced to do that, although you don't have to do that. I want to acknowledge that you do not have to take it as an opportunity for transformation, but you can take it as an opportunity for transformation. And actually, these two individuals that recently got laid off and that I've been aware of, I can tell that they have positioned themselves and desired to be able to transform. And they've petitioned to God, maybe who am I? What am I doing? Where am I supposed to go? I want things to change in my life. Things are stagnant. They're not moving forward. And I'm not saying that God or the universe comes in and, causes you to lose your job, right? But I do think that awareness can come when that opportunity happens, and we can use it to be able to transform and use it to be able to be that catalyst that causes us to move forward, to get rid of the old and to just break free. When we petition to our higher power, whatever it may be, oftentimes we're like, God, I want more happiness. I want this, that, or the other. There's any number of things that we desire and we're asking of our higher power. But until we are able to let go of the old, there's no opportunity to bring in the new. And sometimes we have a really hard time letting go of the old in order to bring the opportunity for something better for us to come along. So those are kind of the two reasons why I wanted to talk about this today. One, my own experience going through it right now, and two, witnessing other people having the opportunity to maybe shift their future a little bit and walk down a path that maybe they desired to walk down before, and for some reason they didn't pursue that. So I want you to take a minute and think about how old you are. That should probably be a relatively easy answer, right? You probably know how old you are, although as I get older, I have a harder time answering that question. And I remember when I was young, I would ask my parents how old they were, and they would be like, I'm not sure. And I always wondered, how do you not know how old you are? Because when you're young, you're just counting next year I'm going to be 11. And when I'm 11, I could ride this ride at this amusement park. And then as you get older, all of the years kind of blend together. So maybe you're like me and you're having a hard time figuring it out, but let's try to at least remember what our age is. So I right now am 32 years old. And so imagine your age. See your age, acknowledge your age. And then I want you to take a minute to think about a path that you decided not to go down. Or I want you to think about a path or an opportunity that has come to you or been brought to your awareness, or something that you've kind of, imagined but are scared to go down, because you feel like your opportunity has passed you by, because you feel like you're too old to be able to go after it. I'm going to pause this. I'm going to wait for a minute, because I really want you to have something specific come into your mind. I want you to allow it to come up and to be able to visualize it and to be able to kind of experience the emotions that come up when you're visualizing it, whether it's pain or excitement or passion or regret. And maybe let's, just come back to center as we are experiencing these emotions, or we're thinking about, this path not traveled. I want you to just take a really deep breath and then just come back. Let those, attachments, those emotions, those feelings surrounding it, let it go, so that we can just be kind of unbiased. We can just look at it from a very neutral standpoint. And I want you to take that deep breath and let it go. And as you let it go, I want you to just imagine all of those, attachments to it. I want you to imagine all of those just coming out of your body with your breath. So let's take another breath. And release it. And the reason why I wanted us to come back to center, and I want you to imagine this and visualize this, is because this is actually an opportunity to do a little bit of your own belief work. As you listen to these stories that I'm going to share with you, I want you to see what resonates with you, especially when you have this specific idea in mind, something that you didn't do or something that you want to do but feel like you can't do for some reason, whether it's age or societal norms or, other obligations. So have that really clear in your mind. And then we're releasing all of that tension so that we can just receive information. What I mean by receiving information, this might be different for you than it is for me or for your neighbor, or if somebody's sitting in your car while you're listening to this. It could be while I'm talking and sharing my own personal experience, there's just a rising sensation of emotions. And, we don't necessarily have to identify with those emotions. We don't have to take them on, but we can notice them and say, oh, there's something in there for me to see. Oh, my body wants me to recognize this. My higher power wants to bring this to my attention. So paying attention to emotions that are coming up, or maybe paying attention to body sensations that come up when you're listening to my stories, but also, sometimes when you listen to a story, you let your mind wander and you're kind of thinking about your own story as you're listening to somebody else's story. Let yourself do that. Let yourself, go down whatever train you need to go down, whatever thought you need to go and explore. And as you are thinking about something or listening to my story, you can notice how your body feels. Do you feel like sick to your stomach, or do you feel like a lightening in your chest and, feeling excited about something? So we can experience and receive information about like what we specifically need to know by our emotions, by our body, by kind of just this knowing in our mind. Please pay attention to those, because that is the key to be able to do your own belief work, to be able to then clear it and make way for you to be able to move forward, hopefully unhindered, towards the things that are calling you. Okay, so I'm just going to take my own big deep breath because, man, that was a lot to say, and I still have a couple stories to tell you. So I have identified maybe just a few, probably not all. It's not an extensive list of all of the reasons why we might be hung up on moving forward with whatever it is that you have in your mind, right? And one of those things I think is, cultural norms, because there are a lot of expectations put on by whatever culture it is that we are in. I had a client the other day. We were doing a one-on-one human design session, and we started talking about the expectations that are placed on her from outside forces. And so she has an open head and an open root center, and both of those centers are centers where we feel pressure. And when those are open, the expectations from other people we are highly conditioned by the expectations of other people, and then we kind of absorb them if we're not trained to be able to know, like, that's their expectation. It's not my own expectation. So she has an open head and an open root, and if you have no idea what I'm talking about, that's okay. It's just a human design chart. I do human design readings to be able to help people see themselves clearly and to be able to do this deconditioning to help them go on the right path that they're seeking after. So she has an open head, an open root, and she's highly conditionable to people's expectations. Well, she grew up in India, and the Indian culture is that you are expected to go to college, and not just to go to college, but to get a master's degree or 2 master's degrees, and that you are expected to work in an elevated position, whether it be a lawyer or a doctor. And then after that, you are meant to get married and then, of course, produce children and, let the name of the family live on for generations. Those are kind of the expectations that she was telling me that she has felt in her life. So we all deal with these expectations, though it could differ from society to society or culture to culture. That's kind of what she personally experienced growing up in India and having an Indian heritage. Well, the pressure that I experienced growing up was that you also needed to know what college you wanted to go to at the end of high school, and that you had to know what you wanted to be, and that you needed to pursue that at a very young age. And I think I've talked about this in another episode, so I'm not going to go in depth about this because this is actually not the story for today. But long story short, I had no idea what I wanted to do at the end of high school, but I felt that pressure to have to know. Luckily, I was supported by people in my life who were like, hey, like you don't have to know exactly what you're doing. How about you just go to Salt Lake Community College, and how about you just like experiment and feel stuff out until you decide how you want to move forward. And so I was given the opportunity to not necessarily have to follow like cultural norms, right? But the story I'm actually going to share with you today, it's one of 3 stories. This one's my personal story, and the next 2 stories are going to be about some very dear loved ones, my mom and my grandma, and they were huge examples to me on being able to switch course later on in life and be able to receive a lot of happiness despite the hurdles that they had to overcome in order to get there. So for this story, I want you to put yourself in your 15-year-old's shoes, the 15-year-old version of you. Well, as a 15-year-old in the 9th grade, I did something that would put those, priorities to the test to see how far I was willing to go to try something new. And that new thing that I wanted to try was I was going to try out for drill team. I was a freshman trying out to be a member of the drill team for my sophomore year. I really didn't know anything about drill team, to be honest, although my cousin had been on it and she enjoyed it and I knew that much. Just for some reason, it was something that I wanted to pursue. So I had my mom drop me off at the audition, and I walk into the school's gym and immediately wanted to turn on my heel and leave, because as I walked in there, I thought, I should not be here. And the reason for this is because when I walked in, there was a gym full of a whole bunch of girls in their dance tights and their little dance top and their hair done and then their makeup on, like their dance makeup on. And I'm there, just in a pair of sweats and my hair just thrown back in a ponytail. I had no previous experience of this kind of dance. I certainly had an experience with dance. I grew up clogging, which is a little bit like tap dance, but the taps are looser, and it's kind of that country western style dancing. And then I also grew up doing Highland dancing or Scottish dancing, which is not similar at all to the style of dancing that you needed to have experience with in order to make it onto drill team. So I did have dance experience, but as I walked in there, I knew that my experience was totally different than the experience of all of these other girls. I knew that they had probably been dancing for years, and I was just going to walk in there and just give it a shot. Well, I couldn't leave because my mom had dropped me off. So I had to move forward with the audition. For our warm-up with the audition, we did something called across the floors. Everybody line up on this wall. We're going to do across the floors. What the freak is an across the floor? But everybody shuffles over to the wall and lines up, and then they start doing across the floors, which are apparently doing one specific dance move across the entire floor with everybody looking at you. I had no idea what these dance moves were. They would say, go across the floor and do a piqué, piqué, piqué. Like, what is a piqué? I have no idea what I am doing here. It was frightening. It was embarrassing, but I did it. Then came time to do the choreographed dance, and at least I had experience learning choreography. This was a little bit more in my wheelhouse, although I'd never done that style of dance before. So I was just like, well, let's do my best. Let's do this thing. The end of the auditions come, and the coach goes over and hangs up the paper that had the list of everybody who had made it on the team on the wall. And I go over, run my finger down all the way down and did not see my name. And I turned to leave, sad, but also understanding, kind of like, what was I thinking going into this without having any dance experience? As I was leaving the gym to go get into my mom's car, the coach actually came up to me and she said, "Hey, Laura, I was really impressed with you today. I know that you don't have a lot of dance experience, but what you were able to do without a lot of dance experience was awesome. I think you should spend the next year learning, bettering your technique, taking some classes, and then come back and try out again for your junior year." And I asked my parents, I said, "So I didn't make it on the team, but also can you sign me up for thousands of dollars of dance classes so that I can learn and come back and try again?" And being incredibly supportive parents, they said yes. And I signed up for 6+ hours of dance at a studio because I had to learn so many types of dance. My first class was ballet. And before class, I'm pulling on my tights and I'm putting my ballet shoes on and I've got my plain black leotard and my hair up in a bun with the hairnet around the bun, and walk into that class all confident and ready to learn. And the class was full of 5-year-olds. I towered over those 5-year-olds, and I don't know what I expected, because of course the class is going to be full of 5-year-olds, because most dancers start dancing at the age of 5, and I was in a beginner ballet class. So it would be obvious that I was probably going to be in a class of 5-year-olds. But it kind of caught me off guard. And in that moment, I was reminded that I was doing something or trying to learn something that most people started 10 years before I did. And there was doubt that came into my mind that I should even try, because everybody in that studio, or seemingly everybody in that studio, had been doing it for years. And if they had been doing it for years, what made me think that I could get good enough to be able to make it onto the team? I decided to stay though, and I decided to try. 1, because I was enjoying it, and 2, because, I don't know, there was something inside of me that just really wanted to prove that I could. So I continued going to my classes with my little 5-year-old friends, and then I progressed and I think I progressed actually faster than most of the 5-year-olds. And I believe that is because I had better ability to learn, and then also better ability to maneuver my body and understand that brain to body connection. And so I progressed pretty quickly and got to the point where I knew what an across the floor was. I knew how to do most of the dance moves that had been part of the audition process in the previous year, and I felt ready to go and to try out. I walked into the gym this time, and there were the same amount of girls there. They were dressed the same way. I had on my dance tights, I had on my dance top, and my hair and my makeup appropriately done. And when they said, "Okay, it's time to go across the floors," I lined up with the rest of them, and I did those across the floors, and I held my chin up with pride that I had come so far. Well, the end of the audition came up, and the coach came over, pinned up the paper with all of the names of whoever made it onto the wall. I walked over, brushed my finger down all the names, and I saw my name on that piece of paper. And I was elated in that moment. It was proving to myself, hey, even though I was 15 years old when I started doing this, and basically everybody on the team was 5 years old when they started dancing, I still made it on this team. I still got to do something that I was excited about, just honestly for the sake of wanting to do it. There wasn't any other benefit. It was just, hey, I want to go try this out. And sometimes that is okay. Well, this wasn't really the end of my journey. The next 6 months were really hard because my drill teacher, my coach, was very, very difficult. She was very hard, very strict, perfectionistic, and that is why she creates winning teams. She is fantastic at bringing the team to state, at winning, and she does that at a price. And that price was humiliation. Essentially, that was her motivator, was how much can I humiliate you so that you will get better faster? And she wouldn't just do it. She wouldn't just call it out or talk to you after and say, hey, this was something that I saw you need help with. She would yell it out in the middle of class and say, Lara, you missed your arm on that one. Lara, that was a crappy turn. Lara, point your toes. And so everybody in the entire class would hear you just being, called out on every single thing you did wrong. On top of that, she made us do it as peers. So we, would divide the team up. Half of us would dance the dance. The other half would sit there and also call out every single thing that you did wrong. It was so embarrassing. And there were times that I was overwhelmed because I got called out way more than everybody else on the team because I didn't have as much dance experience. And that pride that I felt and that excitement that I felt for making it on the team fell away because I thought I am totally in over my head, and all the work that I did and all of that patting on my back that I did is just a total waste. And I am humiliated being here. And then I decided I didn't want to be on the team anymore. And I talked to my parents and told them about what was going on and how we were being verbally abused. And they said, okay, well, we support you in whatever decision you make. And I walked in with the full intention of it being my last day. And there was an assistant coach, a new assistant coach. And she was the complete opposite as our coach was. She corrected with love and patience and actually teaching you how to do it better rather than just saying you're not doing it right. And because of her love and encouragement, I decided to stay. And I started making friends. And so then I started getting better because I was encouraged and loved. And I think that's a really big thing. Not necessarily the point of this podcast episode, but can I just point out that we can encourage each other through fear, or we can encourage each other through love. I responded much better to, and I'm sure I wasn't the only one that responded to love more than fear. So I stayed on the team, and it was very hard, and I had to work so freaking hard. But our drill team, the half of the year that was drill team, was up, and then we were going to do another half of the year that was dance company. And it gets to be the point where different dancers are selected for different dances. So not everybody was in all of the dances. Sometimes there were solos or just like 5 or so people picked for one, or sometimes they were the entire company. And this was super scary for me because I thought for sure it was going to be more humiliation for me. That's what I thought was in store for me, because I was going to be, only on those big company dances that everybody was required to be in. There was a group of, the elite ones on the team, the best ones. They were all seniors on the team. They'd been doing it for a while, and they were the best of the best on the team. Super intimidating to me. Oh my gosh. I had a really hard time even talking to them. And they were chosen for a dance that was, 6 people in. And then the assistant coach who had choreographed this dance came up to me and she said, Lara, you are also in this dance. And it was so freaking cool and so freaking validating to myself and to my coach that I was in a dance with the best of the best. I spent the rest of the year dancing with passion, with excitement, with love, with just really enjoying my time there. And it was absolutely worth it all. It was worth the embarrassment. It was worth getting out of my comfort zone. It was worth pushing forward through those social norms that tell us, you're too old to do this. You should have started this a long time ago. And I think that we have that belief in our society. It's just kind of this common theme that you've missed the boat if you haven't done something at a specific time. I want to challenge the societal norms or expectations that you're too late, that you're too old, that it'll take too long to go back and get your master's degree. What's the point of doing it now? You've been doing your career for so long. You're high up in the ranks. Why would you go back and do something that puts you at the bottom? This is silly. There are so many opportunities that I think are missed because we are told these things just through society. It's just kind of this common belief. And I really want to challenge that belief. I also want to take it a step further. What if our life experiences that we have, and what if our extra wisdom through those years later in life, what if those actually benefit us more and help us to progress faster along that journey than we would have without that wisdom? Going back to my dance story, I progressed faster than the 5-year-olds did because I had more experience with my body-mind connection. I had more experience to be able to learn faster than they did. So maybe, could it be possible that I learned more in 1 year than they learned in 10 years? And could that be possible for whatever it is that you are wanting to pursue? I want you to open the door to that being a possibility, that you haven't lost time, you've gained wisdom. When my mom was about 43 years old, she had been a nurse in labor and delivery for, I'm guessing, about 20 years. I remember going to work with her. I'm actually not quite sure why I went to work with her, but there was a couple times maybe I was, not feeling well, or I had to stay home from school or something like that when she brought me into her work. And she enjoyed working there a lot. She got to assist in deliveries. She got to help out with the health of the babies. And she was very popular there. I don't know if popular is the right word, but I remember going around and people just raving about my mom. And she had this beautiful office with a great view because she was such a great employee. And I think she really enjoyed her job. But around 43 years old, she kind of decided that she wanted a little more, that she didn't just want to stand by and let a OB deliver the babies, but that she wanted to deliver the babies. And so she decided at 43 years old to go back and get her master's degree to be a nurse practitioner. And I still remember this time. How old would I have been when she was 43 years old? I don't know. I was young though, and she worked really hard. It was not easy for her to go back to school. It was a couple years of schooling, and she had to work at the same time. She had to take care of our family. But my dad supported her in doing this, and she wasn't held back by the idea that at 43 years old, you've missed the boat. Well, she got her master's degree. She became a nurse practitioner, and to this day, she is thriving as being a nurse practitioner and helping bring babies into this world. And when I asked her about this, she said that there's been nothing that has made her happier than that decision to go back to school and follow the thing that really lit her up at the age of 43. It was also around this time, maybe we could call it a midlife crisis, right? It was around this time that she decided she wanted to be part of a Scottish pipe band. Now, I told you before that I used to do Scottish dancing, or what's called Highland dancing. And that is because Scottish blood runs thick in our veins. And so we've always had, just a passion of going to Scottish festivals and watching the pipe bands. And my mom decided, hey, I want to be a part of those pipe bands. And so at 43 years old, she started learning to drum. She was a tenor drummer for a number of years, and then she became a bass drummer for a number of years. And now she is what is called a drum major, which is something that is basically made for her. She leads and guides the bands. She gets to yell at them. She loves yelling. Mom, I don't mean that in a bad way, but you enjoy yelling and you're really good at it. And she gets to do that. She gets to, direct them through a very loud voice. The cool thing is just a few weeks ago, we got back. We, being my mom, my dad, and my sister and myself, got back from California. And the reason why we went to California is because my mom was able to march as a drum major in the Rose Parade and down Main Street in Disneyland. And Disneyland is like her all-time favorite. She's a huge Disney fan. And it was so cool to watch her walk down Main Street and to see her in this like pinnacle of her efforts to go and follow this thing that she wanted to pursue. She had to try out to be in the Rose Parade, and she had to train because it's such a long parade route. But in that day, I could see that she was happy for the decisions she made at the age of 43 that got her to where she is now. The other example in my life was my grandma, so my mom's mom. After the Vietnam War and kind of all of that unrest, she decided to join the Army because they were desperate for nurses. Nursing is like kind of a thing in our family. My mom's a nurse, my grandma's a nurse, my sister's a nurse, my sister-in-law is a nurse. It's a thing. But the Army was, in need of nurses. And my grandma was, once again, 40 years old. Her family was poor because her husband, so my mom's grandpa, was a English teacher, and they needed the income. And she also had a patriotic heart. She was passionate about our country. And so she decided to join the Army as a nurse and gained the rank of lieutenant colonel. It was so fun for me to go and visit the base with my grandma. Every year she would take us back to school shopping up there because it was cheaper, discounted. And we would be going into Hill Air Force Base, and they would check her ID and then, straighten up and salute her. And I was like, wow, Grandma, who are you? And it was cool to me that she could join the Army and work herself up in the rank and enjoy her time there and start it at the age of 43. So the main thing that I want to convey in this podcast, I hope, is obvious. I hope listening to this podcast, you come away knowing that it's not too late. And also, it's not too late to start over, which I think is a big thing and kind of goes off on a little bit of a different direction, but I want to talk about it just briefly, that a lot of times we hold ourselves to things that we did in the past and, mistakes that we made or who we once were or the people we once surrounded ourselves with. And we hold ourselves to that and don't allow ourselves to change. And I want you to know that it is never too late to start again. And I want to encourage you to not let anybody's expectations or anybody's viewpoint of you keep you from going and renewing yourself and starting fresh and going down a new pathway that feels more honoring to you and that you're ready to walk down. So let's go back. Let's think to the very beginning of this episode when you had envisioned, something that you regretted not doing or something that you want to pursue, but maybe feel hung up about moving forward because of these perceived limitations. I want you to reflect on what I've talked about today, these stories that I've shared, and bring it into your own life. And what is it in your life that is holding you back? Is it embarrassment? Is it social norms? Is it pressure from other people? Is it beliefs that are holding you back? And what are those beliefs? Identify what they are for you, and then work on removing those and being able to see a new way around it so that you can move forward. Journal about it, think about it, talk to your friends about it, go to therapy about it, because the blocks that you have right now could be the only thing holding you back from having that joy, from having that moment where you look back like my mom and say, I am so grateful for that decision I made at age 43, and it has brought me the most happiness that I ever could have experienced. I want you to be like that 15-year-old me that moved through the embarrassment or those limiting beliefs so that you could feel joy, so that you can feel joy. I hope that you can forgive yourself, allow yourself to start fresh and clean at wherever it is that you are, no matter what you've done. And I hope that if you have been pushed in a position where you kind of have to make change, where you have to go a different direction, I hope that you will see it as an opportunity rather than a failure. Thank you so much for joining me today and letting you share some of my own personal stories. It's really fun for me to record these for myself so that I can look back and almost relearn the lesson again. I'm revisiting it again, and I hope that I can also pass these lessons on to my kids or maybe my grandkids as they can go back to these recordings and learn about where they came from and kind of the things that I valued, and decide if they want to bring it into their value system as well. If you are really wanting to move forward powerfully through the conditioning that is preventing you from seeking after your wildest dreams, I do one-on-one coaching, and we can focus on these things. When we look at your human design chart, I can very clearly see where you are susceptible to some big conditioning. I love working one-on-one with people to rewrite their stories, is what I have called it. This one-on-one transformation coaching. So if you really want just a powerful boost to be able to work through these blocks, then you can schedule an appointment with me at SolScriptStudio.com. Thanks for joining me today. If you enjoyed this episode, please subscribe, leave a review, and share it with someone who needs a little inspiration. Your support makes a world of difference. Until next time, keep rewriting and reigniting your story. Before we finish this podcast episode up, I want to share one more thing with you. I have a therapist, and I go and see a therapist on a very regular basis. I think it is important for you, for me, and for everybody on planet Earth to seek out a qualified professional to help them. Please remember that the advice I share on this podcast is just for general purposes only. I seek out to be accurate, but I certainly cannot guarantee it, nor do I accept the responsibility for any actions taken after listening to this podcast. By listening, you agree not to hold SolScript Studio, nor myself, Laura Titensor, liable for any outcomes. Thank you so much for understanding, and go and find yourself a therapist.